Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Oh.
Okay, what did I do? I can't see anybody. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so YouTube is, we are streaming live on YouTube. It is up and running.
Can't hear you, Paul.
I said I should sound normal today.
Yeah, yeah, better than that comp plan meeting.
Yeah, I did that to London, Britain too, when I was attending their historical commission meeting, and they actually got a big kick out of it, but it wasn't very useful when I wanted to comment.
Do you know what you did to make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, to cause it, what I've got is some sort of mismatch between the sound system on my computer and the external microphone and the way Zoom is handling them. And I'm not, sometimes I think I have to literally reboot in order to clear the problem. It doesn't help, excuse me, that I'm doing it in Linux. But I've solved the problem tonight by using my wife's iPad to log on. So that takes care of that. So I won't revert to some sort of strange Disney character halfway through. Let's see here.
1, 2,
Just trying
3, 4. Okay, we have all the PC members who are attending tonight. Mark said he would not be able to attend, so there's 4 of you. So Dave,
Right.
anytime you want to start, you can.
Joan, is Dave going to be on the call?
Dave, who?
Christian Haber.
He said he's going to be 10 minutes late.
Okay.
All right, let's call the Franklin Township Planning Commission meeting of February, what are we, 4? 4th.
4.
To order at 7:02. Any public comment, or are you able to get who's in attendance? Okay, great. Any public comment? Is there any public? Let's move on to approval of last meeting's minutes.
I went through those and I sent them back to Mary. I thought they were okay. Joan and I had a discussion about one point, but it was minor. So I see there's no problem with them.
Did anybody have any comments or other corrections? No?
Nope.
Motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Chuck seconded. John made the motion. Any comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Great. So just for clarification, Joan, we're looking at the comments on section 22 and 27. That's what we want to work on tonight.
Yes. So 22 starts on page 16 of your book. And Jeff Vogels is online with us in case you have some questions.
Yeah. Hi, Jeff. Thank you for attending. Thanks for your comment. Hopefully we all had a chance to at least peruse these, and I think we can go through them pretty quickly, at least the majority of them. If anybody has any suggested way of approaching it. I'd like to just hit each question by number and look at Jeff's recommended response and see if anybody has any additional comments to Jeff's recommended response without necessarily wording or reading through everything specifically. Any questions or concerns to at least trying to approach it that way?
It seems reasonable.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I just have a quick question. Looking at the book, it looks like there's a section to pick one category in the list to say whether it needs to be revised. Is there any chance that conversation will happen and then I need to plug in the space in the book where it requests for revise as followed?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll go through each question, see what Jeff recommends, and then we will tell you what our response is.
Okay.
I anticipate maybe one having or two having significant conversation to them, but
Okay. Thank you.
so if we go to page 16 of the book, which would be chapter 22, subdivision land development, question 2201. It's suggested that the solicitor comment on that, and I'm not even quite sure what 2201 is asking, but since we don't have a box to check on that, I think if it's a solicitor response, we just move on to question number 2.
Dave, that paragraph there that is 2201 it just says that that we did revise this previously and that they feel that it's conforms with the requirements of the MPC. And I will confirm this with Mark, but right now they seem to feel that that's adequate.
We all right to move on to question 2?
Yes.
Well, for Mary, how do you want to mark this? Do you want to mark this? This is to be reviewed by the solicitor?
Well, our comment, we recommend that go with Jeff's recommendation that we should revise it to read 22-613.
Right. So we approve that, and now the solicitor has to review it according to Joan, right?
Yes, he definitely will.
Okay, so we'll go along with Jeff's recommendation. Okay, good enough.
Everybody okay with that? Question 3, it's suggested to change the time frame from 45 days to 30 days.
Yeah, I had a question about that. If Chester County doesn't come back with a response, or if it comes back on the 30th day, does that create a problem for the township? Does the township need more time?
This is a question that Pete responded to, I believe.
Because when I read it, I get kind of confused. Because it's basically saying that we don't get a response. Let's see.
Well, it says that you can't approve it until you get receive a report from the county or until the expiration of 30 days.
Right. Are you happy with that? I mean, does that work?
Well, that's what they're saying that the standard is with the MPC. So.
Okay.
You're right with that, Jeff?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Because twice I said something and nobody seemed to respond. Actually, their responses from Pete, those 3 or 4 questions out, you notice I have EC, engineer's comment, and solicitor's response. I didn't actually put that answer together. I think that's from Pete Eisenbrown.
Okay.
But if that's what the MPC states, don't we have to follow that?
Yes, we should.
I mean, Mark will review all these, but I'm just saying if we choose what you think it should be, and then Mark can confirm it.
So we'll recommend changing to 30 days.
So revise to 45 to 30 days.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we need to add the other section? Such municipalities shall not approve such applications until the county is received. Can we get both of that in there? Or we don't currently have it in there, right?
Where are you reading that?
Well, their recommendation. I guess they're not saying that.
Should not
Yeah.
approve such applicant until the county report is received. Well, they say that's what the
Yeah.
MPC states, so they're
Right.
recommending to revise that.
Got it.
Yeah, and it does say put 45 days in both places. Or 30 days, sorry. 30 days.
Okay.
Question 4.
That makes no sense.
I was confused with it myself, so,
Yeah.
Which one makes no sense?
Well, okay, let me, in the event that the county planning commission is required to review the final plan, such review shall take no more than 45 days following the submittal to the county. Now, whether it's 45 or 30, doesn't really matter. Then it says, no action shall be taken by the Board of Supervisors until the county review has been received.
Or
I
the
can-
expiration date of 30 days.
It's a separate sentence.
So it doesn't make the applicant wait an unreasonable amount of time.
Yeah,
It
but
says-
then I understand that, but it says in the event, but you're going to have to substitute either 30. The only problem I see with this, I would point out is if the supervisors get ahead of the county because the county is taking its time and the county finds something that's seriously wrong, what then happens to the applicant?
Well, the board has the right to deny it if they feel if they don't have adequate information.
No, I'm thinking more where the board approves it. It would have to be conditional on the county, correct?
They could do it that way.
Aren't we reducing the amount of time the county has to deal with it? So they have to respond in 30 days. So the board can act in 30 days.
Except I find it confusing if you've got that middle sentence, no action shall be taken by this Board of Supervisors and the county review has been received.
Paul, that's what the MPC states. We didn't make that up. They didn't make it up. That's what the
No, I
MPC states.
understand it, but it seems to me that there's a tension within this. That's all.
Aren't they saying that if the county takes more than 30 days, then we're ignoring what the county says, or whatever the county says is null and void?
it says if they take more than 30 days, it looks like the supervisors can make their own decision without the county input.
Right. In other
Yeah, but
words, the
they
county's
don't have
input is
to.
not.
Because
No.
it says may.
Yeah.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
I was under the impression that the county's opinion was advisory.
A lot of it is.
So if the county doesn't agree, then the county doesn't agree. It's still ultimately the decision of the Board of Supervisors.
But the county can bring up a point which we haven't thought about, which could be important.
It's from a practical sense, though, there aren't any approvals that happen in 30 days.
Right.
And
This is
it's-
only after it goes final. So it's already been through, I mean, that wouldn't be the only
Hmm.
time that the county sees it, correct?
Well, we send it to them when there's a final plan comes, that goes to the county planning commission. If it a land development plan or subdivision plan, it would go to the county.
But is the final, the first time they've seen it, or will they see it in a preliminary also and comment on a preliminary?
They usually see it for the final plan.
So it's already been all through the process before the county ever weighs in?
No, it depends how it's submitted to the planning to the board and the planning commission. If it's submitted as a preliminary plan, then that's worked on, until you come up with a final, and then the applicant submits a final plan. Then that will go to the Chester County Planning Commission, and it goes back to all of you for your final recommendation. If it's submitted as a preliminary / final, then that would be sent on to the Planning Commission immediately. Does that answer your question?
Well, I'm just surprised that we wait all the way until final. I'm just surprised that the county doesn't want to take a look at it before it gets to final. Because if we approve a preliminary and then we find something wrong in final, legally, the applicant has a pretty strong case to say, well, why didn't you tell us that in preliminary? Especially when it comes to, big, broad brush, big strokes. Look, and if the county has something to say, it just seems odd. It seems like
Going
it's a
to Zach's point, typically the county is making recommendations.
Correct.
So that there aren't, they can't say you can't do something. They can say, this is not typically what we do, or this is typically what we do, or they may advise us of some potential pitfalls, but not necessarily saying that they're wrong. At least,
Yeah. John, I don't want, it's been so long since we reviewed a major plan,
right.
but I thought the preliminaries went to county and, obviously they go to all our consultants too.
Well, they go for water and for sewer and things of that order. Are we confusing those things?
Let me see if I can,
It's been a while though, yeah.
yeah.
And I'm looking at this again, and I'm seeing something. The thrust of what the new section says is actually very different than what the old section says. The old section puts an upper time limit on action. The new section puts a lower time limit on action. The first one says it shall take no more. The second one says shall not approve until. So in essence, it strikes me that the revision is more, the wording that's used in the subsections it's quoted is more restrictive than, actually it's more permissive. In other words, that it doesn't say exactly when the township should be doing something. If you just simply substitute 30 for 45, you're actually putting a different interpretation on what I'm reading in the second section. So you're going from shall not approve until the expiration of 30 days to shall take no more than 30 days. So just switching the number is not the same thing.
No, they're actually saying that you have until the county gets back to you, or you have to wait 30 days and then you can make a decision.
Should we?
I
Oh,
understand that, but the other one says,
Yeah.
you got to get it done by 45 days.
Right. No, I hear you.
So
So
that's two very different things. And if you put 30 in there, you're going to say you've got to get it done by 30 days, not you've got to wait 30 days.
Yeah.
And so can we, with that comment, agree that because the municipal planning code says 30 days, and we agree with the 30 days, but this does require solicitor review. And it seems that Mark should write this.
Yes.
Is everybody all right with that?
That seems reasonable, because I think we could talk about this for another hour.
So Mary, are you clear on that? Our recommendation for that?
So you guys are recommending that Mark, the solicitor, manages the revising this.
To update it to 30 days to match the municipal code, but that the wording needs to be visited by Mark.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Question 4.
That's good. That was the one I was struggling with.
I forgot to bring my, my zoning book home. Does anybody have one?
So I was just gonna say, I think I have the code up. I could share my screen. If I could share my screen, I could just have the code itself up on my screen. And then we can review it. I just need to get to chapter 22. And it's 502.
502.1R.
502, there it is. All right, so let's bear with me here. Share screen. There we go. Share. All right, so everybody should see my screen. Let me make everything big. All right, so we are in 502.1R, which is all the way down here.
Dave, can you
So-
make it a little bit smaller so we can see the right-hand side?
Let me know when you're good.
Good.
Yep. That's
One back.
tiny for me.
That one?
Yeah.
Should we start at the top and start with the main section, or are we good with just R?
Well, I think you need the main section to see what they're requiring
Yeah, you
or what
need,
they're talking about.
All right, so 1 is the following information shall be furnished as part of the preliminary plan submission. Any composite or comprehensive plan of a subdivision shall be drawn at a scale no smaller than 100 feet to the inch. All the plans to be submitted shall be drawn at a scale no smaller than 50 feet to the inch. And then we have all the subsections. I don't know if we need to read through all the subsections, as I think they all refer back to this main point.
Yeah, we could just jump down
So
to
Just
R.
down to R.
Down to R. It's like a patent. Where the plan covers only a part of the entire tract, or where the applicant is the owner of or has interest in adjoining tracts. Am I missing something?
yeah, it's the same.
No, it's a sentence fragment.
So there's a second segment. What is
No, it's
R?
not modifying anything. It's a standalone sentence without an action.
Right.
Well, no, go back
It-
to the
it-
top. Go back to the top. I think it's an exception.
Okay.
It was meant to,
Following.
No, you see, it doesn't say
Yeah.
that.
it doesn't say that, but it was meant to be an exception, I believe.
So what it is telling us is not a complete, yes, okay, you're right. So this makes, so it's just hanging there with no,
It's a condition without an action.
yes. Where the plan covers only part of the entire tract, or where the applicant is the owner of or has interest in adjoining tracts. What?
A smaller scale is acceptable.
That could be. Well, what does it say above it? An erosion and sediment pollution plan. So that has nothing to do with the scale. S.
I think it's more
but
interesting
if you
to
look
look
at-
at S
With P,
because
P is also a similar thing. It basically imposes a condition without an action.
The location of required site triangles at all proposed intersections, along with a note stating applicable height restrictions. So it should say whatever this
Well,
verbiage is. The submission should include the location of
Yeah.
required site triangles at proposed intersections. And then maybe it says where the plan covers only a part of the entire tract, or where the applicant is the owner, or blah, 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 should be duly noted or should be noted within the plan. Maybe that's what they're asking for. Like, make sure that you clarify this. Make sure you clarify this within your plan. Make sure you clarify this within your plan. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, if R needs to be clarified, then P does as well.
I agree. That's good. It's good that you saw that. An erosion. Yeah, because if you look at Q, it says that, it gives you the condition and then what you're supposed to do with it. My
Although it looks
assumption is,
It also looks like V is also a similar,
yeah, should be included, like shall be included or something like that.
This is Nancy. Because it says, or where the applicant is the owner of or has interest in adjoining tracts, is it something about having the person with the adjoining tract be aware or involved? I mean, does adjoining be it's another owner?
Well,
No.
where that sense is the owners of adjoining tracts are already required to be on plans.
Okay.
So I don't know
So
if it adds anything if that's what we think it was meant to say.
so it reads logically. If you go back to 1 and read the following information shall be furnished as part of the preliminary plan submission, hold your breath and scroll down to R
I get what you're saying.
and read where the plan covers only
Oh, right.
part of the entire tract, or where the applicant is owner of or has interest in adjoining tracts. This also works for the location in P.
Yeah.
And an environmental impact statement. The problem is they're not all structured this way, and I think that's where the confusion arises.
So Paul,
I didn't understand what was required when you read it that way.
so
You need to show where.
so the
The
following
plan-
information shall be furnished, and then so almost you'd have, if you were to reorder it, I think it was Chuck who said that.
Yeah.
If you were to reorder it, you would say, you'd have your number 1 would be the following information shall be furnished, A, whatever R was, right? Where the plan covers only part of a tract. P, it would make more sense if this.
But my question is on the plan,
Right.
what are we telling them to put on the plan? I'm not
Well, you could
following
just
an
look
action.
at H, okay?
A
Well,
north arrow.
yeah,
Right.
so you
They're
put a
telling
north
them
arrow
to
on it.
put north arrow on the plan,
Right,
right?
Then
That's
you're
all
saying,
they're telling them. And,
All right,
and
but-
then
here,
you're saying,
but then it
Repeat.
says where the plan covers part of the entire tract.
yeah, like so
That's
show
not
us.
an action still.
So if you
no,
you
no,
referred it,
you're, well, neither is North Arrow in action. What's missing at the beginning of all of these is essentially the verb show.
Show, yeah.
Where. Show the North Arrow. Show the location.
So maybe can we, if we were, that makes 100% sense. So if you say show the location of the required site triangles at all proposed intersections, show where the plan covers only part of the entire tract, and I think V, show an environment.
Well, that would be submit.
Oh yeah, or provide or submit.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
should
but-
we reword it, or does it, or if we reword this, would we have to take it out of the structure of that it's in right now? I mean, I guess we
But-
could just add show to those.
Even if you say show, what do you show under R?
Where you would show where the plan would covers only part of the entire tract. So my guess would be you have a situation where you only want to develop a portion of your land, and you'd have to show that there's adjoining property that's not part of the plan that you also own.
Yeah. So
So why does it? Sorry.
Chuck, it's great that the group has found even more than what the reviewers gave us. So I don't think we can make a clear recommendation except to say whether the engineer or a consultant needs to review this section. I'm fearful that if we only pull out the 3 that we know right now, we may not be addressing properly the whole section.
Yeah, we might be creating a bigger mess.
Right.
Yeah.
So how does that get rectified, Joan, you think? Do we sit down and just tease our way through it, or just say the PC has noted some irregularities that need to be addressed beyond what was identified in the plan?
Typically, if we've done ordinance review, we would have the engineer take a stab
Okay.
or the zoning officer, depending on what we're talking about, which sections of the ordinances we're talking about, and then we would review them again as a planning commission.
All right.
When we're done with this review, we have 2 options. One is to have our solicitor make any changes or suggestions that you come up with, or we give this back to general code and say, here are the changes we want to make. So either way, we can decide, we can have Mark look at this and see what he thinks. If we're going to have general code do the changes, and then we could just add it to this book and say, we also want this change to take place. So we could just put a note there for now that, more than one item needs to be reviewed. Is that agreed?
More than one item in section 22-502.
Correct.
You do,
I would suggest.
Yeah.
Is it rest
go ahead,
of the,
Dave, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
is the rest of the commission agreeable to that?
I am.
That we
Agree.
recommend that the entire section 22-502 be reviewed.
Yeah.
Yes, I would vote for that.
And I think we would just point out the P, R, and V as examples of what we found to be problematic.
Okay.
Okay. All right, got that.
Yep.
Okay. Question 5, recommended to revise. It's just changing the part of the chapter to be consistent. We all right with that?
Yep.
Question 5, so we would recommend revise as needed. And number 6, suggested that the solicitor review fine going along, or should we review that wording?
Okay, I know that this has changed because we don't have a parkland fund anymore. I can't tell you the exact time frame, but this was changed so that any fee in lieu funds collected from developers can now be added to our regular park and rec fund and used as needed to maintain our parks. So this does have to be revised, and I'm not. So that, let me see the yellow here. They may be saying that now because we don't have to put it in a parkland fund any longer.
So the recommendation was to change the wording to upon request of any person who paid any fee under the subsection. So I mean, the way I read it was we would have to pay the person back if we used the money for something other than parks. Right? So are you suggesting we just get rid of this since we don't have a specific park fund?
Well, we have a park fund, and I think we need to check to see what the current law is, because this says the funds have to be expended within 3 years. Let me check this with Mark. I've asked him to start looking at this, so I'll see how far along he is. But this is something that he would have to weigh in, or we need to check the MPC because.
So our recommendation would be revise as follow, and that's solicitor's review.
Okay. Seven.
Okay, go on to 7. It's recommended that we revise it as suggested.
It's 22.9.
That was basically code reference numbers were wrong and they were just correcting the numbers.
All right, so we'll correct as suggested.
That's what you want to correct, Jeff?
Yes, that's how I wanted it.
Okay.
Okay.
And then question 8.
$9013. There we go.
Well, it seems like we don't have a reference to
That I was,
Yeah. I actually know what happened. I tracked this one down. So PA law has been changed so that it's now the responsibility of the local health department to issue these certificates. And if you look at 27-1906, 5 and 6, that's what my notes say. We now both we refer to the Chester County Health Department instead of the state there.
Hey, Paul, can you give me that chapter 27?
I've got what I've written down is 27-1906, numbers 5 and 6. Right. So if you look at numbers 5 and 6, we refer to the Chester County Health Department.
So I guess the recommendation would be to just reword this and send people to chapter 27, or do we just take this out?
The solicitor could determine that, but it basically, the person who's issuing these certificates now is the Chester County Health Department under state law.
Okay. So what's the recommendation? Do we just?
I can't read that.
Well, I know it is the Chester County Health Department that we have to go to for the sewage issues and permits. So let me check with Mark and see if that's adequate, just to change that to Chester County Health Department instead of DEP.
That would be good. And then question 9, again, is reference numbers.
Yes, that's just reference numbers again, and I recommended you revise as suggested. I checked those numbers.
So we're good with that, to recommend revise to refer to 27-1906.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, great.
Yes.
I think that's basically the revision that we're asking for the previous question too, right?
Yeah, it was because of this item that I found 1906.
Yeah. So it seems like that's, now, we can get Mark's opinion, but it seems like both of those are the same answer.
So now we jump to 27, chapter 27.
And move on to zoning.
Yeah.
Question 1 is making sure it goes along with the MPC. I would think that's a job for Mark.
Okay.
Yes.
We want to
Jen.
move to question
Jen.
2.
Jen,
Yes,
I just want to make sure I'm on the right page here in our codes book.
28.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, so we are at 27.4.
No, 2702.
So two.
2.
Oh, no, I'm looking at the section, subsection 27 in 27.402. Subsection 3, that's the question, I think.
Oh, okay, 402.
Right here.
Jeff, where did you get the A, B, and C?
Well, they were asking 3 actual questions and those 2 bullet points. It's been a while since I looked at this at myself, but you see, it says in the first paragraph, we noted the following questionable reference, which prompted this comment. And it says, see also, you have 27.402 subsection 3C, then 27.502 3B, and then subsection 1C.
Okay, that appears that some of those numbers, okay, you said in C changed 27 to 402 to 404 as they recommend it.
That one I can pull out. I'm trying to pull out the first 2. Basically, I was requesting, because it had to do with vehicle access and traffic controls and off-street parking, I was asking the engineer to read it, weigh in on that. And then I just made the change on point C to change it from 604 to 404.
Okay, so you want Pete to weigh in on that one, on that first part?
Well,
Yes.
my concern with the whole question is the parentheses that says this is not listed as a complete list. So I think similar to the other back in chapter 22, we want to look at the whole section.
So do we have that up, Dave? 27?
Well, that's where I think it's worth, getting through as many of these as we can tonight, but this is a large section and we should either ask our engineer to review the section and then we can just focus on this and maybe the section from 22 and looking ahead, maybe at least on the section on timber harvesting. But I'm thinking there's some that need more attention than just reviewing what when they found, particularly when they say we might not have found everything.
Okay.
Does that sound like a good plan to the rest?
I think it sounds like an excellent plan.
So
Yeah,
are we saying, is it Pete going to be reviewing this? The engineer's going to review this, or is it something that solicitor's going to work with Pete on? Or it's just Pete and then it comes back to us?
Many of the times, Joan, we have Pete work on it first, right?
Yes, and we can go through these numbers to see if there are more as they suggested. There may be.
Okay. Pete first. Okay.
Yeah, I'll double check my notes on that too. Like I said, it's been a while since I looked at this.
Question 3.
Can I get you to back up for a sec?
Sure.
I would just like to note two things that might be helpful for reference. In the first bullet under 27-002, 27-402 subsection 3C is for reference the only place I could find in the code that refers to a private club or lodge. So I don't know necessarily where they're going, but there are no other parallels. There's no other information about them anywhere else in the code. And then,
Definitions for them?
I'm sorry?
Do we know if we have definitions for them?
I would guess not if I did a code search and found no other location. I hadn't even thought of that. I was just trying to get a hit. And this is the only occurrence that I got on the word lodge. There's plenty of talk about lodging, but not a lodge, and there's no other reference to a private club, although the word private shows up elsewhere. And the other thing I wanted to note here is with the second bullet, subsection 1C, 27-604 for agricultural use regulations. While that is indeed a correct description of what subsection C is, it is subsection C under area and bulk regulations. And in fact, 27-404 subsection 1, there is no subsection 1A, are the correct area and bulk regulations for ag. So this is, if you just pull the capital letter A off of subsection 1A and have it read subsection 1, I think that this is a correct cross-reference.
So I have on my screen what Paul's talking about here, which is this table under section 27-404 subsection 1. There is no 1A, it's just this table.
Right, and if you go back to subsection 1C, if you actually look first at what 27-604 is, you will see that they are also area and use, area and bulk provisions.
Okay.
So I think that this is fundamentally correct, except for it should be 1, not 1A.
Well, should we deal with that when we do a review of this section later, or do you want to do it tonight?
I think those are good comments to share with Pete and Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting a solution, but because I noted this, I didn't want to get beyond this and not point this out.
Yeah, thank you. Mary, are you able to put that in the notes for Pete?
Yes, I added that for him.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I might have misunderstood what you meant, Paul.
Okay, so
So
you see, you're at 27-404, right?
yeah, but what I'm saying is in subsection 1C and 27-604 for agricultural use regulations refers to 27-404, but I don't know if it does the agricultural use regulations.
That's misleading. That's misleading. If you go to the beginning of that section, 27-604, so it's below where you
Yeah, I gotta get. It's one of the weird. I have to go back out and then go back in. So 6, right?
Yeah, I think so.
We don't
Yes.
even have any of that zoning in the township.
You see what 20, where are you? 27-6, keep going down, go down.
604, right?
604. You see what that is? It's actually area and bulk regulations.
Oh, yeah. And here's your subsection 1A.
And so the subsection, if you go down, well, it's actually 1C that's referred to. And if you go down to 1C, that's the cross-reference. It says agricultural use, but it's sending you to the right place for the correct information.
Okay, I see. I get it. All right, I see. Okay. Hope I didn't inadvertently confuse everybody, but I sort of get it now.
Joan, you just said we don't have MDR?
No,
No, we don't.
Then should
We
we
just have
consider
that in
taking it
there
out?
for fun.
pardon?
Should we consider taking it out entirely?
All that, that's something the board could consider, but we do not have any MDR zoning in the township.
Let me redirect the question. Dave, should we consider taking it out?
My question would be, are we required to have it and we just don't have it? More than, I mean, similar that we're required to have certain zoning. And did we have MDR and it's just been used? And
No,
No, there's nothing in the township at all.
and we had a fair share analysis done by the Chester County Planning Commission, and they did not say that we're required to have that.
So the
There's nothing in this
benefit-
section that's not in any other section. There's no
Say that
use here. There's no use here that is only in this section.
Um,
I never reviewed it for that.
what are the uses by right? Yeah,
You want me to
just-
go somewhere else?
Yeah,
No,
just go
just-
up.
Just
Up.
Go top of MDR.
Keep going. Right there, stop, go down. There you go. Uses
okay,
by
two
right.
family detached, two family attached. Agriculture. That's the uses by right are available in other zoning districts. Permitted accessory uses, let's see, residential, agriculture, private swimming pool.
I think I'd go as far tonight to ask for a review and a recommendation of whether to eliminate. I don't think
Mhm.
tonight we should make a recommendation to take a section of the ordinance out without really giving it some thought and having it reviewed.
But if we don't have the zone, there's no point in filling up the zoning book with things we don't have.
Not tonight, but I could at least check to make sure all the uses are covered in other districts so we can make the decision as to whether we gotta relocate something or we can eliminate it altogether.
Yeah, because if there's something in here that is only allowed here, we need to fix that regardless.
Yes.
Okay, so is that question 2.5 or? Anyways, Jeff, you made a note of it, right?
Yes. I don't think that's actually one of the questions in here.
No.
I like to go off script.
Yeah, I think we're still talking about 27.2, right?
Right, so do I just make a statement that that Jeff and Peter are going to review part 6 MDR, medium density? And
I think
then,
so.
and then they're going to review that whole section and make a decision whether it's necessary or not.
Recommendation, yeah.
All right, so 27.2.
Oh, interesting. So this cross-reference occurs elsewhere. The same situation is under the LDR district under 27-504.
What number are we on now?
I've gone off topic. Sorry.
You said 27.504?
Right. So the cross-referencing issue that was noted here, section 27.604. So 27.504 has the same issue.
Yeah.
And so we do need to at least eliminate turn subsection 1A into subsection 1 there. And 27 doesn't exist in 27.704. We don't envision agricultural uses there.
What zoning is that?
High density.
No, we don't have agriculture in high density.
No, right. But I was just looking just in case it paralleled it. I figured if I'm going to look at one, I might as well look at them all.
If we don't allow agriculture in high density, we really need to.
Oh, see, well,
No, we did. We added it. We added
they
agriculture.
changed it. That's right.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking now at, because we permitted it in the village too.
Yeah,
at
we
the same
added it to
time.
all districts.
Right.
So did we change this section in the appropriate districts? Joan?
We did for agriculture. We did pass a revision to the ordinance to add agriculture to all zoning districts.
Right, but did we create wording within the area and bulk regulations section in each of the districts to send folks to the ag standards?
It should have. Now, whether the code people, when they did the codification, if we go to one of the other
Yeah, I'm looking at the village district right now at the area and bulk regulations, and there is no reference to sending you to 27-404.
Yeah, I think that came up on a couple issues, and I think, Joan, we have that in our file of other changes that needed to
Okay.
be made.
And they just didn't pick it up here. Okay, so we need to do the ag reference.
Yeah, so that needs to be in the high density and in the village.
Okay.
Did it end up then too in TND?
We had to add it to T&D. That's all
Right.
agriculture now.
Right, so that should probably have a reference under area and bulk too. If it's valid in one, it's valid in the other.
Paul, is this all part of the revision that's part of the 27002? Or is this something you're just adding to it that needs to be considered?
Yeah, I'm just mentioning stuff that it's all, these would be parallels to the second bullet under 27-002 that begins subsection 1C. The cross-reference is correct, except it should be subsection 1, not subsection 1A.
Yeah.
We're missing parallel sections to this in the village district and in the
High density.
high density. There may be another way of handling this, but I'm just pointing out that they don't parallel each other.
So
I'm just wondering how
Yeah.
far down into the weeds I have to go in this conversation with the notes, and whether it's something that they're going to consider in the beginning of the whole review based on.
This is a separate issue to my mind from that. It's just something I'm noting in passing.
Jeff, how would you recommend we put it in the notes, since it's going to be you to refer back to see if we've already noted we have to make changes?
I would call that an add-on to verify that ag is referenced in all districts and referring back to 404. We're going to have to do further research on it.
I would recommend that we add an A under 404 in case we need to add a B. The other sections have A's, B's, and C's, and I think what happened was, since there was only one section, the A got dropped, but it probably originally was there. Does that make sense?
A B would be added automatically if we had to add any other provisions to it. I'll look at that.
Yeah, I'm just saying that if you take the section that didn't have the A, where it just was one, and there was no A, it's because there was no B in that section. But if we modify that section to have a B, then we're gonna have to go back and redo everything and find.
Yeah, but
everything.
that's where all the other zoning districts with agriculture are being referred back to that, because that's the AR zoning.
I know. Right here, if you add A, just like all the others, then you don't have to go find all the 1As.
I think what Chuck's saying is he just wants to renumber the system so it's consistent. So if there's an A, B, C in one subsection, if there's no A, put an A in there. So in the future, if we had a B, you don't have to go in there and change the A around. Does that make sense, Chuck?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I think I think they all assumed there was an A,
Right.
and now there's, yeah.
So now if we have a 1, now we'll just add a 1, we'll add an A to that. So all the 1s will become a 1A, so that we don't have to go back and change the A, B, C, Ds when we make a section change like that or an addition.
Well, it wouldn't be, I would point out that if you changed it to 1, it would simply, you'd send you to a section that had A's and B's. The information will still be covered in subsection 1. Should a B be added sometime in the future?
Well, that's something I don't think we have to deal with tonight, do we?
Yeah. No.
No,
Let's
but
deal
I'm
with
just
this.
saying,
Let's
this
move
is
through this thing and let's get back to this at some point.
You got enough to work on, Jeff?
Yes, I do. I got some notes here.
Great. Question 3 has to do with electronic notice and mail notice.
Yeah, I left that for the solicitor.
Is everybody all right leaving that for the solicitor?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of a legal issue.
Can I just make one comment?
Depends. Go ahead.
So,
No.
yeah, I thought that was going to be the response. I would point out that both the old section and the new section here refer to a public hearing. And what we define is a public meeting, not a public hearing.
I would think hearing and meeting are quite different.
Yeah, we don't have a defined public hearing.
Can we
So
make it?
when does something become a public hearing? Like, what would be an example of a public meeting becoming a public hearing?
That would be when we had a court recorder in, probably.
A zoning hearing meeting, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we do this for public meetings, broadly speaking, not just public hearings.
So can we just make a note, suggest that Mark pay attention to hearing and meeting?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just want to be difficult. You know me.
No, as long as we can limit it to one question, that's fine.
One question per section.
Like every section, one question may have many subsections.
Dave, I didn't hear what you said.
If we're trying to check off boxes, we would revise as follow, solicitor review with making note of the difference between meeting and hearing.
Okay. Because I would think you'd still need hearing if you're going to have the zoning hearing board, right? I mean, doesn't this define?
The zoning hearing board is a hearing.
Yeah.
But this isn't referring to the zoning hearing board. This is referring to like a conditional use or a hearing of that nature.
We
You know,
good?
that would be a hearing within our one of our board meetings.
So can we move on?
Yeah, let's move on to 4.
Okay, 27-2. (202). All right, and then forestry.
No,
Yeah,
Jeff,
basically, it's just go
review.
ahead.
You have solicitor review, but I think we'd still make comment about whether we would want a definition for forestry.
Yeah, because what this is saying is we don't have any definition for that as now, so they gave you a sample definition. Is that something that everyone would be happy with?
I would have to see what it references. Where can you go up to agriculture? Yeah, there it is in forestry.
And we have forestry in the definitions of timber harvesting as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, Joan, the question was, is this the generally, I mean, I'm assuming this is the generally accepted definition of forestry, as, you know, why else would they suggest this?
That same definition is referred to in timber harvesting operation. It says forestry as defined by the Pennsylvania MPC Code 53. So it is in there. The number's slightly different. The code number. The code number in the, what they're referring to says 10107.
So are we good with that definition with knowing that it will have solicitor review?
I'm agreeable with it.
I don't have a problem with it.
Paul?
No, it works as a definition. The only question I would have looking at that definition is which does not involve any land development. If you're putting in roads, is that considered land development?
They're temporary roads, aren't they, Jeff?
Well, that wouldn't, forestry is the management of the forest. It's not making a development with some trees in it.
Okay. But if you had to go and put in roads, that doesn't raise any kind of issues that have to be dealt with.
I don't think that would involve the roads. The roads they allow for timber harvesting are
Those are private roads. They don't come
a
under.
very difficult thing to manage.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing I would say is what someone else had said is whether I think it might have been Dave, is whether this is simply a dictionary definition and not necessary.
So,
Well, they are saying it's as PA MPC code. So that's where they're pulling the definition from. Whether they just pulled it out of Webster, I can't answer that.
Right. So then I end up at this. We also reference horticulture. Do we have to put a definition of horticulture according to the PA code?
Yeah.
Typically, yes.
So we don't have a definition of horticulture. That the problem I have with this, which is not clear to me, is, where does this end?
Well, typically, as soon as you list a permitted use, you should have a definition for it. So it can get pretty extensive.
So,
Why?
yeah.
Why do we have a
here's
timber?
So I guess it's when you look at, and I understand the point, right? When do you stop defining things? And I think when you look at the timber harvesting operation and the timber harvesting, it's up here in the harvesting operation. Forestry has a definition. You can find it here, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be put into this document, because we say, we've got this definition of forestry and you can find that definition here. Now, as long as this thing still exists, I don't know that thing still exists.
Is it possible to put a catch-all, phrase in there? Is there anything not more specifically defined shall be construed to be defined by, Blackstone's Legal Dictionary, Volume 2, page 45 or whatever? Is there a standard?
Don't specify a page.
Well, I'm saying, is there a standard text,
right,
that's used for? Because yeah, you're right. You could get into the definition of any word you want to get into if you want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, and if you look at this really poorly formatted text document I found under the legislatepa.us, forestry, the management of forests and timberlands when practiced in accordance with applied blah, 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 is the definition that they have here.
Right. Do they define horticulture?
Oh, for crying out loud, Paul.
Hold on.
Now I'm curious.
You're already on G. Just hit page down a couple times.
Right. Yeah, it should be just below. No.
Paul, I'm putting a limit of 8:30 for this meeting.
All right,
They skipped the H.
So I think the important thing is, before we get to horticulture, is it says forestry, and then we have a definition of, now I've lost my, back in our, Dave, can you go back to our?
Yeah, sorry. There you go.
We have timber harvesting operation. Wasn't the intention that ag include timber harvesting operations, not forestry? Wasn't that supposed to be the way it was supposed to link? And don't forget, this applies to virtually all parts of our township because it's in ag.
Right. So
it shouldn't loop around to forestry. It should be through this definition right here, timber harvesting operation.
Yeah, but ag refers to forestry, not timber harvesting.
I know, but I think it's supposed to, timber harvesting isn't, I'll bet you it's not allowed use anywhere. So here we have a dangling definition that really has no purpose, but I think the purpose was originally to be everywhere where we have forestry.
We do have timber harvesting in the zoning ordinance. So we do need that definition. I believe if everybody understood what the timber harvesting zoning ordinance allowed and the lack of control over it as a township, we would probably want to make some changes. But that's a whole nother subject.
So it's allowed, it is an allowed use in some other uses?
It's not, I don't think it's specified as a use in a certain zoning district, but it has its own section in the ordinance.
Oh.
Well, the difference between timber harvesting operation and timber harvesting plan both refer to removal. forestry doesn't refer to removal of trees, right?
It can.
It can, but it also is
Yeah, it's
not
broader.
broader.
It includes harvesting.
So is your point that forestry includes tapping for maple? I mean, what else would you do if you didn't harvest it? How is it forestry?
Yeah, because if you read,
Well,
the,
in the-
if you read the definition, it's clearly forestry is the act of growing and harvesting and transporting trees. It's not tapping trees for maple or using it as a, otherwise, selling trees for commercial purposes.
And it is very different than timber harvesting.
What?
Okay, that's what I don't understand.
Yeah, that's opposite of what we were
Well-
just saying.
Well, timber harvesting is I come in and you have 100 acres and I say, I'll buy these trees. Forestry is you have a property and you're growing the trees as a business to harvest.
Gotcha. Timber harvesting is a part of the chain in forestry. So there's the development, the cultivation, the harvesting, the transportation, and the selling. And timber harvesting operation is simply just that middle piece, the harvesting. So, I mean, I don't know, honestly, just not to be, silly here, but I don't know if we really need to put the definition of forestry into this. Because my guess is if you're in the timber harvesting business, you know what forestry is. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if what we're.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're doing.
Seems to me our concern would be the harvesting, not the growing. That's
Yes. Yeah.
I
Because that's
mean,
where the potential, any potential problems would be, right?
that's the way I see it also, is that, as a zoning act, timber harvesting is the element, not forestry.
Yeah. And
So basically, we should just change the definition in agriculture and just take it out.
It should be as timber harvesting instead of forestry in ag.
I don't
Uh,
know, because there's areas where you wouldn't necessarily.
You'd want to
So-
limit the harvesting
It
there.
is-
So if you go back to what is actually being asked of us, they're saying because you mentioned forestry, you should define forestry. And I guess my argument is, well, we have defined it. It's right here. It's defined by the municipality's planning code, such and such, right?
Not actually.
Okay.
Here's how this plays out. Let me see if I can give you a good example of this. If you wanted to have a forestry operation and you say, well, I'm in the ag district and ag's allowed, so I can do it. I don't have a definition to work from. I have to say, oh, what you're really doing is timber harvesting. And he says, no, I'm growing trees. And I will, like say it's pine trees, Christmas trees. That's forestry. And I'm just going to cut them down for Christmas trees. That's not timber harvesting. So you can't apply that definition of forestry because that definition is only for timber harvesting. You can't apply it to agriculture.
So I think that's a good point. So what's the downside then? So to just put this definition of forestry, into this list of definitions where we just spell it out that we are selling trees for commercial purposes, right? Forestry covers all economic avenues for trees, right? It's timber harvesting, it's whatever it is. But as long as you're selling, at the end of the day, if you're selling trees for commercial purposes, you're engaging in forestry. Whether that flavor of forestry is Christmas trees or whether it's timber harvesting, falls under the general definition of forestry. So if we just put that definition into this document, does that solve all of our problems, or does it create any more ones?
I think it would be simple to add it, and I don't think it would add to any problems.
Okay. Okay, so
In the zoning world, definitions are always the key to answering different questions that come up.
So that was the first piece, right? Should we put the definition in? So we're all saying, so I'm saying yes. I don't know if everybody else agrees. And then there's the second piece, which is add forestry as a permitted use in each district, which, I mean.
So if we're in agreement that we put the forestry definition in, and forestry is agriculture, you don't have to add it to every district. It's already there by the fact that it's.
Right, okay, perfect.
That's correct.
All right, good.
Does that mean if we put that definition in there, timber harvesting operation now is null and void because somebody can just simply say, I'm not timber harvesting, I have a forestry. So I just cut down all the woods on this property under forestry, not under timber harvesting. I think that's what's going to happen.
If I can say, I think the problem might be, to Jeff's point, that we don't have a good ordinance on timber harvesting. Do we want clear cutting? Do we want selective harvesting? So that seems to be the missing piece.
I thought we did have a section.
So
Timber harvesting? No. Timber harvesting exists largely within our definitions. I've been scoping it out. Outside of that, it occurs under steep slope use regulations and under natural resource protection standards.
So
everything
Chuck,
else is in a definition.
Yeah, and I think, I guess, Chuck, to your point about forestry, if you're sort of looking at the definition of forestry, it's developing, cultivating, harvesting, transporting, and selling trees for commercial purposes. It's not or selling trees for commercial purposes. So forestry encompasses, our definition as it's written here, encompasses all of these definitions. So if you just buy something in clear cut, you're not engaging in forestry, you're engaging in timber harvesting by the definition of your behavior, right? So you'd have to be doing all of these other things. So if someone comes in and clear cuts and then cultivates more trees to harvest, then they're engaging in forestry. Because forestry is the way I'm reading it is it's a all-encompassing activity that includes many sub-activities, whereas timber harvesting is very specific to what you just mentioned, clear cutting.
And it doesn't allow you to clear cut. It gets pretty specific as to what kind of trees you can take down in the timber harvest.
Okay, so we have a section under timber harvesting.
Well, as Paul pointed out, it's in natural resources. I think it's all the way at the end.
It's 27-2503, protection standards. And it's yeah. And that's for wetlands. So we essentially
So it's not,
describe it most completely for wetlands and steep slopes.
we don't protect the trees for anything else.
Well, we have a you'd have to probably do a search on woodland disturbance.
I can't help but think about that clear cutting that was done on Route 1 in Longwood, and it's just, what a nightmare. I don't know if that's something that could happen to us.
So woodland disturbance is defined. Any activity which alters the existing structure of woodland or hedgerow. Alterations include the cutting or removal of canopy trees, sub-canopy trees, understory shrubs, vines, and herbaceous woodland floor species. Any activity which constitutes a land disturbance within a woodland or hedgerow. Woodland disturbance does not include the selective cutting or removal of invasive species, removal of vegetation which constitutes hazardous conditions, where woodland disturbance is regulated as timber harvesting operation. Such operation shall not be separately regulated as woodland disturbance. So then it sends us back to the definition of timber harvesting, right? So
Yeah, and I can't find woodland disturbance regulated. The term only occurs in 3 sections. I take that back. The term occurs twice in definitions and once under protection standards, which brings us back to
land disturbance.
No, it brings us back to watercourses, riparian buffers, resource protection. So it's 27-2503. So this is subsection 5. 1A. Yeah, I don't know that we have any regulation on clear cutting. Let's try.
So getting back to a comment, Jeff, you made maybe a half hour ago. Do you feel we're exposed to timber harvesting, that we need to put more effort into our ordinances?
Yes. I actually had some timber harvesting done down on where the Stolfitzes are now on Appleton and Strickersville.
Mm-hmm.
Before they purchased it, the previous owner allowed some timber harvesting there. It's very difficult to lasso those people in. I went over everything about the wetlands and stream lines, and I had to mark it all out. But when they show up with that equipment, that just drives over everything, and they're in and out and gone, and you have a mess, and there's no way of dealing with it.
That was my experience many years ago behind my office. And the contractor actually said, I got to get in and out of here quick. When I asked what was going on. We're going back, a decade and a half maybe, but.
not to get off on this in itself, but in my opinion, there should be a very high escrow put up. So you have something for leverage that they'll come back and straighten things out so they can get their escrow back. But that's a whole nother subject in itself.
So I think what we need to do here then is spend some time drafting a clear cutting ordinance. Right? Is that one of the outcomes from this conversation?
I don't know
would
the
include-
process. I was just gonna say, I don't know the process, but should the board discuss it first so that we don't waste your time if board members aren't interested? It seems like a really good thing to me.
Well, we would have to, the PC would suggest it and then we would go, then the board would discuss it.
Yeah, before we draft anything, I think.
Well, that's the process, right? They would say, we need to draft, or we need to, the PC suggests that we do this. And then the board says, yeah, we think we agree with you. Let's go draft some ordinance. That's how that would play out.
That's how solar worked. Yeah.
Jeff, do you have ordinances that you can point to that we could look at?
I could come up with some, that's for sure.
That would
But
be
as
appropriate.
Nancy pointed out, until the Board of Supervisors say go ahead, might be best if we just sit tight till we get approval on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the outcome from this conversation would simply be to suggest to the board, and I can suggest it to the board to, we need to consider this clear cutting ordinance. And if the board agrees, then we can have the PC draft a recommendation. It doesn't mean we have to adopt it. It just means here we're going to draft something to consider.
We can add that to the agenda for this month's meeting if you want, Dave, just to have
Yeah,
a
I think
discussion.
that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea.
Dave, can I
John-
ask that you make it broader than just clear cut so that we can kind of address forestry?
Yeah, I mean, I
and
guess
so-
what I would suggest is let's kind of, if you take a couple minutes and just, work with Joan to say, here's what the recommendation is from the PC, right? Here's the breadth that we want to consider.
Wouldn't the Chester County Planning Commission have something that we could draw from? Because I would think
Probably.
that we're not the only township that would have this issue come up.
Yeah, I'm sure there's stuff out there.
As
Yeah,
well as
that's what
PSATs. PSATs is a great resource that's free, and we'll probably have some useful information there too.
So I think our recommendation would be for the board to entertain revision to our ordinances pertaining to forestry. What was it? Timber harvesting operations.
Selective cutting, there was one other,
Woodland disturbance,
woodland disturbance.
woodlands, plural.
Yeah, so it's timber harvesting, woodlands disturbance,
So-
and clear cutting, selective
so-
harvesting.
Yeah, selective harvesting and clear cutting.
Well, those are
I mean-
subsets of timber harvesting.
We want to
Right.
encourage people to let their trees grow. We want to encourage that. We don't want to be cutting trees down in advance before they reach maturity, so.
And
both
Joan,
sides.
do you want to add in the other ordinance that I don't know if you've talked with the PC about it, but the issue of when people have plan submissions that they want reviewed, how much money the township should put into it, before the owner or the applicant takes on responsibility?
Nancy, are you talking about the conditional use again?
Is it just conditional use?
No, anytime an applicant wants plans reviewed, we do
Right.
get escrow from them and they
That's
are
it.
responsible for that cost.
Yeah, we've talked about that. I don't know if you've talked to the PC about it, but that seems like a pretty important thing to also maybe include.
Well, I mean, that is our standard practice for reviewing plans, is to have an escrow. The only changes that when we were talking about changing the conditional use last month to maybe changing it to a payment for bringing the conditional use before the PC and the board, and then having escrow funds to cover the costs of everything associated with it.
Yeah, just for the rest of the PC to understand, there have been a couple of times where the township itself has invested over $10,000 in a conditional use review that never really went anywhere. And, you know, how much exposure should the township take on financially is the question, and how can we minimize that to a reasonable amount?
So right now, they're only required
Talking,
for the meetings.
Pardon, Dave?
Right now, they're only required to escrow for conditional use hearings.
Yeah, currently it's a $1,500 fee.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that can go for many hearings and many reviews. So what we talked about at last month's board meeting was possibly requiring a $500 application fee for the conditional use. And then the $1,000 would go into escrow to be replenished as needed until the conditional use hearing was completed.
I think as a PC member, I think we'd want to look at what conditional uses, where it's required before we, you know, so we can review that as a planning commission. I don't want to put any due hardship on applicants that have a simple conditional use application.
Well, they may get more money back with this, Dave, because again, the fee would be there and then the escrow would be in place. And so whatever wasn't used would be returned to them.
I mean, are the other planning commissioners open to review what the proposal is? I mean, I am.
Yeah.
Sure.
And maybe it'd be good to know when it failed, why it failed. You know, why there was a substantial expense incurred on a conditional use.
Yeah, I mean, the irony on the one I'm thinking about, the golf course or the brewery, is if it hadn't failed, if they hadn't withdrawn it, we would probably be up to maybe 20 grand of our own money invested. So that's a good question. And, you know, we could really end up spending a lot of money if we don't have some parameters.
Good. Sounds like we're going to have some productive meetings the next couple months. Is everybody good if we adjourn at this point?
I am.
Yes.
Sure.
Anything we can go over, Joan, before we?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's any public comment.
No, I just have a question. So we ended at 2704-004 question. So is that where are we gonna pick up on the same one? I don't know that we've actually, did we finish there or do we add more? I don't know if this is just going to go back to Pete and or where.
Well, I think we'll just pick up on 20. I think we finished 2704 with the additional desire to add a ordinance around forestry and timber harvesting. And then we are going to move down next time we meet to question 2705. That's how I understood it.
Yes.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Are we adding the definition of forestry for now?
I thought we were. I thought we were going to add the definition of forestry and then look to create that ordinance around, I don't know what the right word is, but timber harvesting, clear cutting, selective harvesting. I think that's where we left it.
So I have it as you were going to add the definition with a solicitor's review. Is that right? And then,
Correct, and we were not gonna add forestry to each district because it's included in agriculture.
That's right.
And then we're asking the board whether to send back to us, adding more specific ordinances for timber harvesting and related operations.
Hey, Joan and or Mary, to help the board with that discussion, can you supply us with some examples of what the PC is sort of asking for? So we can say, hey, this is what we're kind of want to ask the PC to look at. And that'll make it a lot easier for us to just say yes or no.
Right, I think Jeff said he has some sample ordinances
Yeah,
that we can look at.
Yep.
Okay, Jeff?
And that's all, and I think we're good on that.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll look around for some and I'll just scan them and send them out to everybody.
Great.
And to hold true to what I said, the Board of Supervisors meeting is still the third Wednesday.
Yes.
Does anybody want to give the report? And I'll plan to be there.
I thought Zach was going to do that, or he was thinking
I
of doing
mean, I guess my question would be, what is there to report?
Honestly, what you would say is that we've started this review process. Something like this, you don't get too specific.
I'm happy to do it. I'm just saying I didn't know that if there's really nothing to say that there is a report due. But
Well,
yeah.
if I could always do it, if we're getting down to, alternate members giving the report, since I'm going to be there to give a report for the Historical Commission in Harb, as long as I just have will there be some sort of rough draft of the minutes?
yes. And I'm sorry, Dave, I have to apologize that I was supposed to send you that draft minutes after I had it completed. I was just caught up in other things and I kind of left you high and dry there at the Board of Supervisors meeting. So without knowing, so I'll make sure that I send it out to you guys beforehand after it gets reviewed with John.
Because I can just summarize it briefly.
Yeah. That's all
I will
really.
be there because I have to make a report.
Well, I think we'll still check in every meeting and see that if for some reason you're away, Paul, with all the international travel everybody's doing.
Yeah, and not only that, but should I be away, I would point out that physical absence from the township is no longer an impediment to attending a Zoom meeting.
That's right.
I've attended township meetings from the Poconos.
I was going to say, we won't look down on you if you're having a margarita on the beach. Totally acceptable.
The Wi-Fi, actually, they're putting in Wi-Fi at the beach where we have a place. That might be possible.
All right, there you go. I'd encourage it.
Very good. Okay. All right, we'll adjourn at 8:48.
All right, thanks, everybody.
See ya.
Thank
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Me.